I know many of you have met me before. I think I've met all of you before, but it's nice to see everyone again. Kate Huber, I am the coordinator for the Creating Healthy Schools and Communities grant. I'm working mostly with the schools. And as many of you know, Sarah Whiteway is also with us. She's also one of the school coordinators. She ran the last couple webinar series that we had on Wednesdays. It's my turn this morning. And this morning we're talking really about partnering with community organizations to promote school wellness. So as we know, community partners can play major roles in supporting the wellness efforts that you're trying to do, not only through funding, but very often businesses, local non-for-profits, community centers, they really share your vision of wanting to create healthy communities, which is one reason why our grant is set up as a school and community grant, because we want to be working together in collaboration and not just creating healthy schools, but healthy communities as well. Community-based organizations really invest in community improvement initiatives. I know in several areas around here, they wanted to develop a new community playground and they partnered with the school to be able to do that. They were able to garner a significant portion of the dollars for the playground through their businesses, through their community organizations. So it wasn't just put up to the school to do it. They can help have trust and credibility for your programs. Very often there are certain businesses, certain organizations in a school community that everybody goes to, everybody relies on for support, regardless of what the area is. So the more partners you can bring on who have that trust and credibility already, it helps to lend that to your programming as well. And then obviously they can provide resources and funding, which is the first place that we always go to when we're looking for why to support or why to engage community partners in what we're doing. And they also have valuable insight on the conditions required to, really support those health and wellness relationships in the community. So you might be working with a local Boys and Girls Club, but the head of the Boys and Girls Club works very well with the Community Foundation of Greater Buffalo. So you need a lot of funding. The Boys and Girls Club might not be able to give you that funding, but they might be able to support your efforts to get funding from a community foundation or from other organizations within the community. This is a link here that I found online. It's 100 ways that businesses can be involved in schools. Are you seeing the PowerPoint still, or did it switch to?
We're still seeing the PowerPoint.
So this isn't directly around health and wellness, but I liked the amount of ideas that they had on here, and some of them I didn't really think about. So I encourage you after the webinar to take a look at this, and it can help to brainstorm different ideas for you on what or some of the different ways that you could partner with the community. Took me back over there. Sorry, my mouse is not working right now. So the relationship is really bidirectional. You get a lot of benefit from the community and from businesses, but they also can benefit from the relationship as well, because they're going to get more business. They're going to have that increased trust from the rest of the community because they're partnering with the school. Schools are the hub of any community. So if a business or a community organization can be looked favorably from the school, that's only going to increase their business and their opportunity to help the community. So these are just a very quick list that I came up with by what do we mean by community partners? What am I missing? What ideas do you have for community partners that aren't listed there? Feel free to just unmute and share. Maybe I'm just that good and I actually captured them all, right? The school meal program is one that most districts don't really consider a community partner because they're housed in the school. But very often school meal programs are actually a separate entity from the school district itself. They have their own budget. They very often have their own staffing. And so they can actually be a critical partner in helping to promote the wellness efforts in your district, whether it be to help cater after school events or help provide healthier options at the concession stands for sporting events. They can help with classroom celebrations. Families can order snacks from the school meal program rather than having kids bring in unhealthy cupcakes. So when we think about community partners, remember the school meal program is one of the partners as well. So some best practices. First, find and prioritize partners that successfully serve your population and share a common mission of healthy, thriving youth. There are a lot of community organizations and businesses who would be willing to partner with you, but they don't necessarily support the mission of healthy, thriving youth. For example, many school districts have held McTeacher nights or Panera nights, Chipotle nights, and basically the school is getting some revenue from that, but they're also using teachers as free labor, and they're having teachers basically tell their students and their families that this is healthy food. So even though you're able to get some funding from those activities, that's really sending a very mixed message to your students and families when you're trying to promote wellness efforts and then hold things like McTeacher nights, for example. Second, discuss ways to support, promote, and expand what the CBOs or community-based organizations and local businesses do. Like we said, this is a really symbiotic relationship. So they want to be able to help you, but they also sometimes want you to be able to help them. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then depending on what the actual partnership is and what they're doing for you, you may want to look at creating a more formal partnership through a memorandum of understanding, just so that everyone knows what's expected of each party in the agreement. So really finding and prioritizing populations to help you can take a little bit more time, but I found that it actually makes those community partners more valuable because they have a more defined understanding of what it is that their role is. So we can easily ask a bunch of community organizations or businesses to come and sit on wellness committees, but very often if they don't know what their role is other than to offer up an idea here or there, or if they're only looked at as being at the table because they can provide funding, then they're less likely to stay invested and make sure that they prioritize coming to your meetings on a regular basis in really doing the work to support your efforts. So it's worth the time to answer some of these questions before reaching out to certain stakeholders so that you can have a more informed conversation with them about why you want them as part of your committee. So what role will they play? How can they help achieve your wellness visions and missions? What are the key messages that you need to communicate? So if you're reaching out to a local hardware store to be part of your wellness efforts, how you pitch that might be very different than if you're reaching out to the local YMCA, right? They each have different missions and what their organizations or businesses do. So making sure that you communicate with them why you want them to be that partner and what role you see them playing. And then a little bit about how they might know that they're successful, so that they might know at the end that it was worth their time to be part of it. I really like this graphic, and I have this hyperlinked so that you'll be able to have a copy of this, but then also a blank one. I thought this was really interesting, looking at the various stakeholders and the amount of effort that you need to put in to keep them informed. So we have influence and power, and then interest and commitment. So it's possible that you might have some parents, for example, that want to serve on your wellness committee, and they're very interested, they're very committed, but they don't really have a lot of influence or power with other parents or with administrators or with the key decision makers in the school community that would help promote your efforts. So you want to make sure that you keep them informed and communicate with them, but you don't necessarily have to make sure that they're satisfied all the time, because if they're super interested and super committed, even if they're not understanding what's happening all the time, they're still going to be involved. They're still going to be there. Again, on the upper left, they have high power and low interest. So these are the people that you're really going to need to make sure that you keep them satisfied, that you keep them informed, that you take their opinions into account, that you look at communicating with them in a way that matters to them. Again, talking about the local hardware store, why do they have a lot of influence in the community? What matters to them that's going to keep them involved and interested? This could also be with your administrators. I know we're talking about community partners here, but sometimes administrators have 1,000 plates spinning in the air. And if you want them to be able to look at your plate and help support what you're doing, you need to make sure, you might need to put a little bit more effort into making sure that they understand what's happening and can be supportive, because at the end of the day, very often administrators are those decision makers that we need to have on board. And then, as I said, this symbiosis, right? Discuss ways to support and promote what the businesses and the other organizations that are supporting you are doing as well to keep them engaged. So there are local gyms, or even bookstores sometimes offer health-related activities for students. Maybe they have a children's yoga class that's happening. So make sure that you're helping to promote the things that they're doing within your school community as appropriate. Sell local products as fundraisers. If you have a hardware store, I keep using the hardware store, but if you have a local farmers market, partner with them as your fundraisers. Patronize the supporting businesses. Even as an individual, go to those places, especially if they're local. Build a relationship with the managers there, so that maybe even if they're not able to financially support you now, but come to some of your meetings, as they get to know you and build that relationship, they see that you're patronizing their business, you're getting your family and friends to patronize their businesses. At some point, they might be more likely to put some funding toward your efforts as well. And then allowing nonprofits to use school facilities. Very often nonprofits have very small offices, and they rent an office or two in a larger building and want to have larger events, but don't have the space for it. So allow them to use your school facilities for some of their events as a way to help them so that they continue to help you. And like I said earlier, really ensure that the overall mission of the business or the organization that you're working with is aligned with your school efforts in general, but the health and wellness efforts specifically. And then lastly, build formal relationships. If it's going to be a more ongoing formal relationship, it is very helpful to have some language down on papers that administrators sign, their administrators or business managers sign so that everyone knows what's happening, and then always constantly promote. So you can even put in part of an agreement that you're going to continue to promote and advertise and share on social media the good things that they're doing for the school. So some examples, working with local parks department and community centers, they're really active throughout neighborhoods, and they can provide outdoor space, offer fitness classes. I know in Cheektowaga specifically, they have a very active youth and recreation department, and they're always open to offering different types of classes. So if you know that your students are really interested in archery, for example, but maybe you don't have the equipment, partner with them, see if they can provide the archery equipment. They can have community-based programs around archery, and then you can borrow that equipment for 1 or 2 units a year in the school so that you're not having to purchase the equipment, but your students still get the benefit of archery, and they can do it in the school and community as well then. Businesses like grocery stores and restaurants and farmers markets can donate food and drinks for, breakfast, school-wide events, harvest shares. Some districts are trying to look into farm shares for staff. It can be hard if staff don't all live in that community. They can pick them up at the school, but then when the school year ends, picking them up over the summer can be a little bit more challenging. But there are some farm shares that might be willing to do shorter ones so that you're only doing the farm share in June, for example. And then again, maybe this is why I'm talking about local hardware stores so often. They can donate the supplies for the gardens, reflective spaces, staff wellness rooms. Many of them can also lend you the tools or let you borrow the tools to really install a big garden that you'd only need those tools once, so you don't have to purchase them, you can borrow them. So this is related to Home Depot, which is interesting because it is not a local business, right? Home Depot is a major international company, but there was a school in Atlanta who really needed funding to help create a space for staff, a wellness space to gather, stretch, meditate, and they needed funding. She went to the Home Depot, they said no. She went to the Home Depot, they said no. She continued to go to the Home Depot until they said yes. She was just persistent. It was locally run, even though it was a national company. The local owners still got to know the school and were able to end up providing the funding to renovate the space for the staff. All right, so we're going to share a little bit now. So who have you partnered with in the past? Who are you currently partnering with? Feel free to type it in the chat. Even better if you want to unmute and tell us a little bit about some of the partners that you're working with to help share ideas for the other districts.
Hi, I'm Mary Carol Deering from Springville.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, I'm a community member, and I'm not aware of any formal partnerships that are, in this vein, but just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of some recent things that have occurred because of some of the COVID relief funding. I know that there were some like children's programs that were offered in the school last summer for the first time, where the school received the funding as part of the COVID relief, and a local nonprofit, the Springville Center for the Arts, assisted in implementing the programming. And it was a really successful kind of community union there. And the hope is that that will continue for a few years. But those are the kind of things that started as a result of COVID, but certainly, they want to continue something like that.
That's great. So they were able to pay the art organization to come in and do the programming, but then hopefully when that additional COVID funding is gone, that relationship will be able to continue because they'll be able to know it was successful, and then they can even use that to go to other funders if needed to help support the program. That's a perfect example. I love that. Thank you.
Judy put in the chat that they've partnered with the local police station and fire department too.
Ooh, Judy, can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Our police department, as probably most police departments are these days, trying to make a better connection with the community. And we, through a series of connections, we were able to partner with Algonquin Sports, and they went to the police department, and they did a great summer program with our school kids and with parents as well. So between the school, the police department, they went into playgrounds, were very separated. So they went into a different playground. They did it 2 days a week, and it was all volunteer on their part. And the fire department joined in as well. And they did a series of different sports and activities with the kids. I was there representing the school district so that, you know, if parents had any concerns or issues, we could connect there. So it was a good community partner connection.
That's fantastic. And those are those types of events that allow you to have conversations with parents about what are some things that you need. Oh, I didn't realize you were having trouble paying rent. Here's another community organization that I know of. So just
Absolutely.
those opportunities to bring families in, and then you can engage in those conversations and those partnerships. Yeah, those are really important opportunities for partners to help the schools. Awesome. Thank you.
We have been using Epic, Every Person Influences Children, and they just started a satellite location here in Salamanca. They're a nonprofit organization that helps to connect community organizations and parents to the school. So they've been starting up some different parenting programs, some like reading support programs for parents, kind of working through Common Core math standards and how to help with Common Core math. They also, during any of the parent presentations, they offer free childcare.
That's huge.
So that helps, you know, because a lot of times families can't make it to programs because they don't have someone to watch, you know, the baby or something of that nature.
Yeah, that's great. And it just sparked something else that I forgot to mention earlier. You know, I talked a little bit about making sure the community organization shares your vision of healthy families, students, communities, but then also that their actions align as well. So I've been to many health fairs where it's a organization that is promoting health, and they have a bowl of candy on the table so that people will come over to their table, right? So we want to make sure that we have conversations, and sometimes this can be language that's in a formal agreement that they're not going to give kids unhealthy foods during activities that they're helping to support or sponsor, because we want, again, that consistent message. So, you know, if they're offering childcare, for example, and they have snacks for the kids, don't have it be cookies. You know, don't always have pop out and pizza for the families. You can have pizza, but maybe just offer water instead. So that, again, that consistent message is being given throughout all of the activities.
Hey, Kate,
Yep.
at Maryvale, the timing has been impeccable with our grant. We have a spin night that actually Sarah's coming tonight to spread the word on what we're doing. And we always run it. So now incorporating the grant, we have a parent survey that we were going to have tonight for parents to fill out. And then we have a wellness fair coming up in March. So we'll be able to partner up even more with some of the contacts. So just a matter of timing that this grant came into fruition when we already had these events already planned. So
That's great.
all
Thank
good
you.
stuff.
Thank you. And Debbie also, I'm sure some of you have heard her speak about, has partnered with the New York Roadrunners, which isn't a local organization. It's actually a national organization. It's based out of New York City, but they provide tons of funding for her Flyers on the Run program, which gets kids up and running after school. So that can be a whole nother presentation at some point, but also looking at a lot of these youth serving national organizations very often have free programming that you can use in addition to the local partners. What are some other ideas? What are other people doing?
I just have to mention that our food service department is a great partner. They have been wonderful about doing taste testings and doing samples, trying new recipes. So sometimes people don't always want to talk to them about it because they are outside organizations. And ours is personal touch, but they're great. They're great and so supportive. So I definitely suggest people do that, make a connection with your director there.
Yes, 100%. And it's interesting. I've done surveys with students and, you have general conversations with the students ahead of time. What do you think about school meals? Oh, they're gross. I hate them. They're disgusting. And then you do a survey and you ask them to tell us about individual meals or items as part of the larger meal. And a lot of the surveys will say, oh, the hamburgers are my favorite. I love when it's grilled cheese day. Yet when you ask them globally about school meals, they say that they're gross and they don't like them. So it's interesting when you're the school food manager and you're constantly collectively hearing students say that they hate school meals. It can be difficult to want to partner to make them better because they don't feel like they're supported by the students. They don't always see that they're really providing a valuable service to the district. And so sometimes working on improving the relationship with the food service between the students and the food service can go along encouraging that and building that motivation for the food service department to get involved in the overall wellness efforts. Because like Judy said, they can do a lot. They get lots of extra food sometimes. They can be creative with their meal plans. They can do taste testing. I know a lot of districts that we're working with now are talking about being able to provide snacks for kids after school for those athletes or those students that stay in clubs. Food service is a great partner to help make that happen. So I definitely second Judy's idea of partnering with food service and figuring out a way to just an improve overall idea of food service because it's valuable in the community. All right, we are right at 8 o'clock. So I really only had one reference point today, the School-Based Health Alliance. It is an incredible organization and has a wealth of resources on the website. They break everything down from how to recruit wellness committee members, how to partner with communities, how to partner with families and parents. They have sample partnership agreements, various resources. So I highly encourage you to check out that website when you have an opportunity, or if you're just looking for more ideas. As I mentioned earlier, if you could please put your name and school district in the chat if you haven't already.
I've also just put in the link to the feedback form. So if you could take a minute and click on that link and let us know, what you thought of this presentation, what you'd like to see in future ones, we would really appreciate it.
And just very quickly, we are doing a school wellness conference in May. I believe the date is May 18th. It will be in Holland. It will be free for all of our schools. And hopefully within the next week or so, I'll send out the formal information about that. But just for right now, if you could save the date. Any last questions, thoughts?